Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foreside Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ. Welcome to another edition of the MemoPOD. I'm glad that you are with us. So last week, and you picked up on this, I got some feedback from some of you. Last week we tried something new. Substack had sent out an email saying that they'd upgraded what they were doing with the videos and that you could upload a video and it would go straight to your podcast and it would do a transcript with it and all of that. And let me just put this plainly, it made it a lot simpler on me, the way that Substack had it set up. And I was thinking, man, if this would work, this would be dynamite. So I'm going to try it this way, not say anything, and see if anybody notices a difference or anything like that. Well, we had some folks notice a difference. And it's true. First of all, if you were watching the transcript, you couldn't just read the transcript because it went with the video. So that's annoying to the people that need to just read it because they can't listen or they can't watch or whatever the reason. Maybe they just like to read. What's wrong with those people, right? But then the other thing is, like if it didn't do punctuation, it didn't do quotations. So I was talking to our human transcriber who works tirelessly to do all this by hand regularly for us. And they told me that if you read the transcript, it looks like my son told me that he was transgender. Because I was reading a story or sharing a quote from a story about somebody's son doing that. And the way, without the quotations, it looked that way. So somebody that's just reading the transcript probably going to get the wrong idea. And then there was some confusion because it didn't look the right way. And did it really go to the podcast like it was supposed to? Maybe it'll get fixed at some point in time. But we are obviously back to the previous format that we had before. So sorry if you were frustrated last week, but nothing should be different this week. So let me start off with this. For years, nay, I say, or I should say, dare I say, decades, progressives, liberals, the secular left have held themselves out to be the movement of, the cause of, the party of, and by and for women. Of, by, and for women. If you are a woman, then you should be on board with the left because the left believes in, and it always frustrated me because the left was not Orthodox Christians, and Christianity has done more for women and the liberation of women and women's rights and all of that stuff, the dignity of womanhood and femininity and all of that stuff, the uniqueness and the mystique of femininity, than any belief system, any faith, any religion, any worldview that has ever existed in the history of mankind. And so to see these chaps coming in on their white horse, pretending to carry off all of the dames, saying, oh no, we're the party for women. What? And it's obviously it's not just women, it's a whole slew of minority groups. But the left has promised that they are and has claimed to be and has paraded themselves around as champions of femininity. And I'm sitting here staring at the mountains of evidence that indicate the exact opposite. And it makes me frustrated. It does. It makes me frustrated, the lies and the deceptions that exist. And they're not confined to the left. I understand that. And I think we have a duty, a responsibility to call out lies when we see them, and this is certainly one. Last Sunday, Okay, so you got to go back about 5 days ago. Democrat Representative, and how do you say, is it Pramila Jayapal? I don't know. Like, I have seen her name and read pieces and written pieces that include her name multiple times. But I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced. But anyway, so she provided the latest example of what I'm talking about. She, being a woman, provided the latest example as she humiliated herself and she humiliated her state and her party, her political party, her movement on national television. She goes on CNN. So these are the friendly confines of CNN, a leftist propaganda network. And we know that. That's what CNN is, and they market themselves as such. They market themselves as new, but everybody knows it. And so she knew she was going into the friendly confines. And they being Dana Bash in this particular circumstance, lofts this softball topic at the Congresswoman about the sexual violence that's been perpetrated by Hamas. Let me just share with you one of the stories that I'm talking about. Here's a quote. This was from, this one's from the JC. I think there was a piece in the Atlantic. Wall Street Journal had a piece on this, reporting about the gang rapes that Hamas engaged in during their October 7th massacre. Gang rapes and then beheaded the women. Here's one of the quotes. Quote, "I saw this beautiful woman with 8 or 10 of the fighters beating and raping her." Now imagine being that person that sees that. You want to help, but you know what's going on. You know that in the end you will die, she will die, they will go on and do what they're doing. So it's got to be this helpless feeling. 8 to 10 Hamas fighters beating and raping her, and the woman is screaming, "Stop it, I'm going to die anyway from what you're doing, just kill me." And they were laughing and raping her. And the last one shoots her in the head. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's animalistic savagery. That's what it is. It's savagery. Acting as savages. And that's the stuff that Dana Bash is bringing up, saying, look, the left obviously has talked about being these protectors of women and all of this. What about this sexual violence that Hamas has perpetrated? Listen to this exchange. And you tell me women are safe in the protection of progressivism. That progressivism is a friend of women. Listen to this.
Other country.
I want to ask you about sexual violence. And it's kind of remarkable that this issue hasn't gotten enough attention globally. Widespread use of rape, brutal rape, sexual violence against Israeli women by Hamas. I've seen a lot of progressive women, generally speaking, they're quick to defend women's rights and speak out against using rape as a weapon of war, but downright silent on what we saw on October 7th and what might be happening inside Gaza right now to these hostages. Why is that?
I mean, I don't know that that's true. I think we always talk about the impact of war on women in particular. In fact, I remember 20 years ago I did a petition around the war in Iraq.
Have you talked about it since October 7th?
Absolutely, and I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned
specifically
all of
women?
the actions. Absolutely, the rape, of course. But I think we have to remember that Israel is a democracy. That is why they are a strong ally of ours. And if they do not comply with international humanitarian law, they are bringing themselves to a place that makes it much more difficult strategically for them to be able to build the kinds of allies, to keep public opinion with them. And frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I think that rape is horrific, sexual assault is horrific. I think that it happens in war situations. Terrorist organizations like Hamas obviously are using these as tools. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians. 15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping
well, Dana, I think
women.
I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions. I think 15,000 people have been killed.
It shouldn't be, which is horrible.
And 2.2 million Palestinians live in a 140 square mile area, which is about the size of Las Vegas, with a population that is 4 times that of Las Vegas, and 1.8 million Palestinians right now are displaced. They are living in shelters. They are being told to move to South Gaza, then South Gaza is being bombed. They're being told to move to North Gaza. There are no homes left. The vast majority of infrastructure has been destroyed. This is not the way that we are going to beat terrorism, whether it's Hamas or some future iteration of Hamas.
On that note, I want to talk about...
I'm sorry, what? Rape is now some sort of complex, nuanced issue? Rape is? Women, I cannot stress this enough. I don't know what you've been told, and I don't know who told you, and I don't know how many times they said it, but your gender is not safe when it is left vulnerable to the consequences of progressive thought. It's not safe. I mean, those examples, the one example that I just gave to you, and there's multiple examples, and you're saying we have to be balanced in our condemnation of gang rape? No, we don't, Congresswoman. What in heaven's name is wrong with you? How is something so vile and so perverse, something that is so inhumane and to me gag-inducing to everybody who hears about it, how is it not grounds for sweeping and universal condemnation? I mean, if you have a different opinion on tax policy, if you have a different opinion on immigration, and there's some bad stuff that happens as the result of immigration, yeah, 100%. We're talking about rape here. Can there not be universal condemnation of rape? Is this now something that we have to view as nuanced? This is something we have to balance properly? It's rape. It's gang rape. How is it even possible to equivocate in your response? I don't care how badly you hate Israel. I don't care how anti-Semitic you are. I don't care how clueless you may be about geopolitics, which obviously maybe all of that applies to the Congresswoman. I don't even care. It shouldn't matter. We're talking about gang rape here. There's no nuance. There's no qualification. There's no stipulating facts. Not to sane, moral people. But, and this is what I really wish women, particularly younger women that flock towards progressivism, this is what women everywhere need to understand. There is nuance. There is qualification. There are stipulations and there is equivocation on the issue of rape if you are progressive. If you are a progressive, then it clearly matters what kind of woman is allegedly being raped. What kind of woman is being raped? When the Congresswoman was wanting to keep Jayapal, whatever it is, when she was wanting to keep Brett Kavanaugh, U.S. Supreme Court Justice, when she was trying to keep him off the U.S. Supreme Court, she seized upon those really bizarre, unfounded, and they were confused allegations that Christine Blasey Ford, you remember her? She brought those up, that she's pretty sure that at a frat party or something like that, that she was gang raped and Brett Kavanaugh was involved, or maybe he was in the room and she couldn't identify him and all that stuff. You know what Pramila Jayapal had to say then? Let me read it to you. Dr. Blasey Ford, I don't know how you say her name, Dr. Ford, has shown herself to be brave, compelling, and absolutely credible today. We owe it to her and to sexual assault survivors everywhere to not confirm Kavanaugh. Hashtag believe survivors. Man. Hashtag believe survivors. And here you've got a report of a woman who didn't survive her gang rape and assault. And Jayapal, well, you got to be nuanced. Yeah, we got to be balanced about this. You know, some of what Israel's done, it's bad. So you can't be surprised. What? I don't care what you have done. I don't care what a sovereign country has done. It is not somehow then acceptable to rape innocent women and girls. Why are we having to have this conversation with elected leaders? Why are we having to have this conversation with anybody? In 2015, this same congresswoman was on about European refugees being subjected to sexual assault. Here's what she wrote. Horrifying. Women refugees fleeing through Europe are told rape is not a real issue. Those women and Ms. Ford, they didn't deserve to be raped. And that's why we had to speak out against it. But Israeli women? No, we have to be balanced. See, that's what I mean. There is equivocation, there is stipulation. It is not possible for Congresswoman Jayapal and her pals who are progressives to come out and say, no equivocation, no stipulation, no question. Raping Israeli women is wrong. End of story. It's disgusting, and the international community should be outraged, should condemn it, and should expect that something be done about it. That's not hard. That's what every single person needs to say. So what leads to this kind of warped compass? I think that's a real question. Because maybe this is just Jayapal. Maybe this is just her and she's nutty. Okay. What leads to this kind of warped moral compass is progressivism. It is the Marxist columns upon which progressivism is constructed. Notice the Marxist, the heartbeat of Marxist theory in many ways is the distinction between oppressed and oppressor. That in every power dynamic, there is always an oppressed person and an oppressor. When I talk to my wife, I am the oppressor and she is the oppressed. Doesn't matter how our relationship really is, doesn't matter. Because of society and the patriarchal roots of our society, I am the oppressor, she is the oppressed. And that's what Marxism does. In every area, in every circumstance, there is an oppressed and an oppressor. And when the oppressed rises up against the oppressor, it's usually going to be okay, according to Marxism, this Marxist paradigm that exists. And notice how progressives apply it to the Israel-Hamas situation and conflict. Israel is the oppressor. Hamas represents the oppressed. Because Israel controls the land, they control the territory, they have the stronger military, they're the oppressor. Hamas, they are the oppressed. And if you ask any Marxist woke scholar that is currently residing in an American dorm room, I'm using the term scholar loosely, obviously. If you ask them, can an oppressor ever be oppressed? You will get an unequivocal no. An oppressor can never be oppressed. You can't really be racist against whites in America because whites are the oppressor. So in progressive thought, see how this plays out. Sure, those Israeli women are being raped, but they are part of the oppressor class, and their rapists are oppressed. Do you see how radically stupid this is? Somebody is raping somebody else, but they are somehow the victim. They are being oppressed. That's what we're talking about here. That rape becomes just part of the necessary resistance. It's a resistance rape is what it is. Look, I'm telling you, this philosophy is so vile, and it's so corrupting, and it's so pervasive at the same time. I mean, don't think that this is confined to just the situation in Israel. Don't look at Congresswoman Jayapal and just say, well, that's just another anti-Semitic lawmaker. It's an anti-Semite doing what they do, justifying rapes against the Jewish people. No, this is endemic. It's not a one-off or a two-off. This is part and parcel of woke, Marxist, progressive thought. That's what it is. And therefore, that same philosophy will be applied liberally in other circumstances as well. How about this one? Report from the Daily Caller. Eight of the nine men who gang raped a 15-year-old girl get no prison time. Oh, another gang rape. 8 of the 9 men who gang raped a 15-year-old girl get no prison time. This is from the story. A female psychiatrist testifying on behalf of the defendants argued that their alleged gang rape was a, listen, quote, means of releasing frustration and anger stemming from their migration experiences and socio-cultural homelessness. Women, I'm telling you, progressivism is not your friend. You are not safe with progressive thought. I look at that and I think it can't be real. We cannot be this far gone. That 8 out of the 9 dudes that gang raped a 15-year-old, well, they were just releasing their frustration and anger because, they are migrants and they've had a rough go of it, and so they're just acting out. Isn't it the left that's always said things like, well, boys will be boys is no excuse for this behavior? And the whole church too, and the sex abuse scandal and all of that. Where are they here? And don't get me wrong, there are probably many of them that would condemn this. But what I'm trying to stress, and I hope that they would, what I'm trying to stress is they do so in contradiction of progressive thought. Because progressive thought teaches exactly what Jayapal is embracing here. That the rapists are of the oppressed class, and therefore, you can't really hold them accountable. You can't really expect better behavior from them. And that's why I'm saying, ultimately, progressivism is a threat to the safety and the security of women. I understand that is completely contradicting the current zeitgeist that is preached at young college girls and has been for generations now. I know that's totally opposed to it, but the proof has always been there. For people who are capable of thinking and willing to think, it's always been there. Look at the progressive position on abortion. What is abortion? The intentional, the proactive, the aggressive killing of your own offspring that, if Planned Parenthood is to be believed, the Guttmacher Institute, over 90% of all of the instances of this act of abortion, they're done for convenience. Nothing to do with health, nothing to do with anything other than convenience. And progressives have made that, the intentional killing of your own offspring, which 90% of the time is done simply for convenience, that is the singular issue upon which women are expected to vote. Imagine suggesting that an entire gender, 50% of the Earth's population, is best represented by securing a legal means to kill children. Insane. But that's what progressivism has pushed. Meanwhile, not only is abortion inhumane, it is an open invitation to who? Who does abortion protect and help? Don't say women. No, I'll tell you who it helps and it protects: unscrupulous men that want to use and abuse women for sexual pleasure and not have any accountability. That's who abortion is made for. Talk to me all day long about your patriarchy. That right there is the very thing in spades that you complain about. Sex traffickers, pornographers, fornicators, pedophiles, rapists, pimps, they have all benefited spectacularly under the evil veil that has been provided by legal abortion. You get rid of the evidence. You get rid of the problem. Keep your top client out there in the field. So there's an example. Progressivism isn't your friend if you're a woman. How about this? Progressive liberals are the ones at the forefront of the transgender insanity that belittles and diminishes the uniqueness, the exceptionality of femininity. Do you know how badly transgenderism and transgender theory demeans women? Being a woman, according to the leftists that push this, it's little more than just a state of mind and cosmetics. That's the mystique of being a woman. That's not me saying that as a conservative. That's what the left is arguing. It's what they're saying. To progressives, the more men that win female beauty pageants, the more men that win women's sporting events, well, then the more advanced and evolved we are as a society. What is that? It's conservatives, interestingly enough, and Christians, interestingly enough, that are pushing back and saying women should not even agree to compete against men. Put an end to it. But here's the left saying, men are better than women at a lot of things, most things, everything, including being a woman. Men make the best women. That's what progressivism is saying. There is, I'll go back to this, a reason that Christianity has done more to liberate and to lift up, elevate the status and the stature of women than any other belief system in the history of the world. And I'm simply hoping that it can do it again. I hope that there's enough of a remnant of Christianity that it can take root, take hold, and grow and blossom, and help liberate those who today are shackled with the misogynistic chains of progressivism. That's what I hope. Your thoughts welcome. Peter at peterheck.com. That is Peter at peterheck.com. Would love it if you'd send me an email my way, or of course you can comment down below. For those of you who are paid subscribers, and I would love it if all of you were paid subscribers, it's really simple. You can do the $10 a month, or if you want cheaper, it's a great gift for the holidays. Just do $100 for a year and it's paid for. Done. And you get the memo that comes out Monday. You get this MemoPOD that comes out on Friday. You get the Bible teaching on Wednesday every week. Keep what you want, what you're interested in, discard the rest. And we're growing this community of like-minded believers, which I think in the days ahead is going to be really important. But anyway, let me explain what I was getting ready to say. In the memo this week that came out on Monday, and I sent it pretty much to everybody, or at least, I didn't send the whole thing to everybody, but I sent at least a preview of it, like the opening of it, to free subscribers. But in it, I talked about, if you read it, this whole notion of gay surrogacy. Gay couples having a woman, paying a woman to grow their baby inside them, grow a baby inside them, and then at the moment of birth, they want to take it out of its mother's arms and give it to a gay couple. Gay surrogacy. And I wrote about Christians and Christianity's opposition to this stuff. I now want to give to you, who are paid subscribers, the single worst response to the gay surrogacy controversy. Like, I truly am struggling to believe that this guy that said this is actually real. People tell me that he is, but I'm really struggling to believe it. You will not believe, truly, you will not believe his evaluation of the whole thing. It's just, of the gay, I can't. But I'll share it with you when we come back after the break. The rest of you who are free, I'll see you next week. Unless, of course, you want to go to that email and click the button, upgrade to paid. Just do it one time for the year. Be a lot cheaper that way. And then you can see the rest of it too. But not trying to pressure anybody. Would love to have you part of what we're doing. So check that out. And those of you who are paid, stick with me. I'll be right back.
The Memo with Peter Heck.
Please patronize and thank all the sponsors of the Heck podcast, including McGonigal's Buick GMC, Terrell's Auto Service, Norris Insurance, Stevens Machine, Creative Financial Center, Indiana Right to Life, Tri-Green Tractor, the Indiana Family Institute, Hartman Family Farms, Liberty Financial Group, the Wyman Group, and J. Watson Creations.
Welcome back to the MemoPOD. Glad that you are all with us, you wonderful paid subscribers. Great to have so many of you on board. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, buy a gift subscription for a friend that you think could benefit this year. Would love to have them part of this. Okay, so this guy, I've talked about him before, and you may not remember this. I've written about him before. It's Dr. Kevin M. Young. And the first time I started seeing his tweets, I legitimately got freaked out. Because one of my favorite ministers to read or to listen to, or really I don't think I listen to him too much, but I read a lot of his stuff, is Kevin DeYoung. Like D-E Young. Not Kevin M. Young, but Kevin DeYoung. I really appreciate a lot. Do I always agree? No. I'm not going to always agree with anybody. You're not always going to agree with me. But I really appreciate the stuff that he puts out. So, and he's kind of got a thinner head, and that sounds bad. Like, I'm not calling him a pencil head, but he's got a thinner head and bald. He doesn't have a lot on top. Well, this guy, Kevin Young, his picture on Twitter, he's kind of bald. And so I did a double take. I'm like, what happened to this guy? And then quickly realized, well, I didn't quickly realize, but I eventually realized, totally different dude. But I have wondered if this guy is actually real. Because you can get easily catfished. You can easily get tricked online. And I still wonder if this isn't some kind of big con. Because what he is the perfect, and I would say all too perfect, caricature of what many of us tend to see and believe the deconstructed, politically progressive, ex-evangelical Christian voice. That this guy is that to perfection. He's got the doctor in front of his name. He's got the obligatory he, him, rev at the end, his preferred pronouns. He calls himself, the post-evangelical. I mean, it's a little bit on the nose from my perspective. So I've always felt that way. I've written about it before, and now I have become convinced. I shouldn't use the word convinced. Now I do think I believe that he's a real guy. I've followed him long enough and I've watched the stuff long enough. I actually think he's real. But my gosh, how is somebody so flabbergastingly foolish when it comes to interpreting and applying the scripture? Okay, so if you don't know what happened, you've got a conservative Christian guy named Ben Zeisloff, and he ignited a powder keg this last week, a bunch of passions. What he did was he criticized Fox News contributor Guy Benson for using a surrogate mother with his gay partner in order to have a baby, his husband. Okay? So Zaisloff goes on and says, conservative commentator Guy Benson and his husband have now rented a womb to acquire a baby, a move which Dave Rubin, also a conservative commentator, and his husband made as well. This is wicked, it's an abomination before God, and should have absolutely no place in the conservative movement. Now, personally, and I wrote about this in the memo, I think the furor that surrounded and followed Ben's post, I think it's a harbinger of things to come for Christians. Because the political left and the mainstream political right are totally given over on this issue. The propagation, the normalization of gay identity, and then gay marriage, and then gay surrogacy, it's reached terminal velocity all across the culture, all across the political spectrum. The only real holdouts on this are religious people. And even that number is dwindling. Progressive believers, they exchanged the truth of God for a lie on the issue of human sexuality a long time ago. But you are seeing the same phenomenon unfold on the right now. I mean, you've got supposedly conservative, reasoned conservatives falling victim to what the Apostle Paul told us would be the fine-sounding arguments of men. Okay, when it comes to fine-sounding arguments, what Dr. Kevin Young wrote, it's not one of them. Here's what he said, quote, "The same Christians who have lost their minds about gay couples renting wombs to bring a baby into the world will go to church and applaud God for borrowing Mary's for 9 months." You see what I'm saying? This is why I ask myself, is this guy serious? I mean, it's too easy. Right? He's writing things that are so easily debunked, so embarrassingly skewed, so flagrantly obtuse, that even though in my head I know it isn't true, there's a part of me that still believes that this is just a fabricated caricature of this prototypical progressive Christian. There's somebody saying all of these dumb things, creating all these straw men so that true Christians can just go and tear them down. But think about this. God rented Mary's womb? Are you kidding me? I know that autonomy is God to the left. Our own autonomy and our own independence. But, man, God didn't rent Mary's womb. God created Mary's womb. God created Mary. He owned her. He owns you. He owns me. He owns everybody. He can do with each of us whatever he wants to do with us, whatever he so desires, and we have nothing to say about it because he's God and we're not. How does a professing Christian not know that? And second, with even the sliver, the tiniest sliver of thought, I about said sliverist, with even the tiniest sliver of rational thought, you see Dr. Young's point completely backfire. So badly that you feel like he needs to return his doctorate. The little piece of paper that tells him how smart he is. He needs to return it. Because this is really bad. Mary was not just an incubator for Jesus, who was upon birth in the manger, ripped from the arms of Mary and thrust into the loving arms of homosexuals. That isn't the story in the Gospel of Luke. That isn't how it played out. God didn't just choose to use Mary's womb, Kevin. Mary was chosen by God to be the mother of Jesus, and she mothered him throughout his entire short earthly life. She wasn't a rented womb. That's the point. That there is a role for a mom to play. That's what Ben Zaisloft and many of us are saying is wrong with gay surrogacy. You are denying the mom the ability to be the mom, something that no dude can do. Which takes us back to where we were before. Progressivism believes that a dude can play the part of mom. No, he can't. Are there unfortunate circumstances where a mom dies or is really sick, or a mom decides to walk away and the dad has to try to do it? Yeah, there are unfortunate circumstances. I get all of that. I'm not delegitimizing those families. That's not the point at all. The point of all of it is, what should we be desiring? And I bet you if you talk to any of those people who are in those circumstances where mom is left, or mom has died, or mom is sick and incapable of being a mom, all of those people who are dealing in that circumstance will say, this isn't optimal. This isn't easy. This isn't good. It's a hardship. Right. Right. Moreover, I want you to notice that when God sent his only Son to inhabit human flesh, to live in the world that he created from nothing, what does that God provide for him? What does God provide for his Son when he sends him into the world? Does he provide him a government program to take care of him? No. Does he provide him a village to raise him? Because it does take a village, after all. No. Does he provide for him 3 uncles? No. He provided for his own Son a mom and a dad. That's what he made sure his son had. Because that's the model. That's the design from the very beginning. It's written in the very beginning, and Jesus affirms it in the book of Matthew, Gospels, but yes, certainly in Matthew. That's it. That's God's design. Therefore, that's what's going to work best. And therefore, that's what you and I should promote and try to sustain. This really is not that hard. And yet somehow, we continue to make it that way. Well, we don't. Dr. Young does. Just unreal. So, if anybody wants to do reconnaissance, if anybody wants to do a little snooping and investigation and report back to me, am I being duped? Is this some really clever conservative that has set up this account and is just barely believable enough that we all say, okay, maybe this is serious? Is Dr. Kevin Young, M. Young, is he a real person? I think if you spend any time on his timeline, you're going to come away with the same questions I've got. Not only is he way out, but the stuff that he's saying is so easily debunked. And it becomes such a good point for believers. There's just a part of me that thinks he's a plant. Maybe a brilliant plant, but a plant. You tell me. Check it out. Let me know. peterpeteregg.com. That is peterpeteregg.com. You can also comment down below, right there in the comments section, and that'll be great. So I'll check it. We'll be in touch. Awesome. Have a great weekend. We'll be back here Monday for more MemoPOD. I'll see you then.